after the creation and formation of Ruby Jeans, and now we're going on 6 years in business, it's created this duality in my life where that platform has really birthed another platform. And I would say that my philanthropic endeavors preceded anything Ruby Jeans based. Like for years and years, I've done different things in the community. And then that turned into Ruby Jeans, and now it's this civic voice that I didn't really foresee, but it's kind of like grown from my interest in philanthropy and genuine giving, and then health. And now saying, how do you take those two interests and transition it to a greater population of people? But then also really scaling Ruby Jeans to a level where it grows outside of Kansas City. One of those places where like it aligns with the brand of the city.
Welcome back to the Positive People Posse Living Room. I'm your host, Dom Green, life enthusiast and marketer of Positive People Posse. This is where we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and uplifting, and of course, marketing. Positive People Posse 3P Media. We are your digital marketing sponsor. We can help you find your audience. And today's special guest is Mr. Chris Goode. What's good?
Not much. How you doing, man?
Man, doing swell. As I said before, you probably get what's good all the time, and it's really fitting that your last name's Good because it's one of the things I say quite often.
Yep, I do. I get all kind of play on my last name since I was a kid. Good stuff, bad stuff, the whole nine.
Indeed. You know, this has actually been a long time coming. I don't know if you remember this, but Positive People Posse, we did this thing called Taco Talks, and I reached out to you, and we had gotten the ball rolling. You're supposed to be a guest on that, and I'm sure we would have had a good time on that, but you're here on the living room, so I appreciate you being here.
No doubt. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and I do remember that, so I'm glad we finally get to connect.
Yeah, man. It's a virtual world now, so it actually makes it a lot easier for me to make things happen, opposed to when I was just running around trying to get production meetings and, meetings in person. It was a lot more difficult. So I'm actually, it's a little bit easier, and, you're at home, I'm at home. So, that's what the living room's all about. It's just kind of, sitting down and just talking about where you started and to where you're at right now. So, let's kind of, before we tell the listeners what you do, let's kind of go back to your childhood and everything that has gotten you to where you're at today. Because, what I see now is a guy who's, all about health. Health is wealth. I believe in the four bodies. Got to hone in on your spirit. You got to hone in on how you feel. Anything and everything that talks about how you are as a person. And so, talk about your youngest days growing up in Kansas City.
Yeah, man. Again, thanks for having me. I am a product of this here town that I love, Kansas City, Missouri. Grew up early on in the 30s and 40s. So on the east side of Kansas City until I was about 10 or 11. In that period, my dad wasn't around. He was out, in hindsight, just figuring himself out. He and my mother they started having babies at the tender age of 16. So my oldest sister was born when my parents were 16 years old. And that in and of itself lends itself to a certain type of trajectory, a certain type of struggle. So my dad had to go out and figure out how he was going to take care of four kids. He and my mom were never married, produced four kids together. I was the youngest. I am the youngest of that crop. I attribute a lot to being the youngest of that crop. That was like a big portion now, I know, in hindsight. But anyway, grew up on the east side early. Then we retreated out to South Kansas City for, I guess, what was meant to be a better life. So South Kansas City, I ended up graduating from Ruskin High School. But to not get to high school, that's kind of the early part. My grandmother, who we'll talk about later a little bit more, she was such a huge factor in my life because my dad was absent early on. And so my mother would find herself working two jobs. for whatever reason, my mom never had my pops on child support. This is pretty intimate information. And so she just figured it out. You know, she had two jobs most times, and my grandmother really gave her that extra support she needed.
Man, I can attest to, some similar things right there. Just, the father in the picture, mom working two jobs. When you're cut from that cloth, I feel like in a way you have this hope mindset, right? Like you see someone work really hard and, it's, you hope that this will pay off, or like living through experiences like that and you see someone actually work extremely hard makes you kind of have that instilled within you. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure that's already instilled in you, seeing someone be that type of example, to do whatever it took to raise four kids.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, my mom. I couldn't really articulate it fully, but she's special. Just probably one of the purest people I've ever encountered, but one of the most diligent and hardworking and sincere people at the same time. She was a hotel maid, and like I have a soft spot today for her. Like if I go somewhere and I'm tipping up hotel staff really well because of my mom, like seeing her go from that job to working at 7-Eleven or whatever number of jobs she carried over the years. It definitely instilled something in me early on, just like a no excuse mentality, like I'm poor. My four kids, dad is not in the picture. He's out figuring his stuff out, but I got to keep it together. And that, it definitely bled into my bloodstream in some way.
Yeah. So being the youngest kid, was it a competitive household with your other siblings?
Man, yes. Mainly with my older brother. So it's myself, my older brother, and then two older sisters. So my brother and I can distinctly remember us playing ping pong. We were playing a game of ping pong, and I was the youngest, and I lost bad. And he was just like, yeah, yeah, doing all this stuff. And those little tiny cans of paint, it must have been near my reach. And I just grabbed it and launched it at him, and he caught it. And I was like, ah, mama, and I took off. So yeah, competition was was definitely a part of my upbringing with my older brother.
Oh man, that it just reminds me of like a Matrix moment right there. You're just like, man, this dude's got a superpower. Like,
It's like, you caught it?
you think you're going to defeat me? That's awesome, man. So, that's kind of like transpired into, like I remember listening to a podcast that you're on. I would say that he's a good friend, Mr. Paul Long. You're chasing a dream of being an athlete, professional athlete. So you started playing football at what age?
I was about 10 or 11, about the time my dad came into the picture. That was our way to connect, right? So he played football through college. And I think it was like, I'm late to the party, but I know football and I know it's good for discipline. I know we can communicate this way. And so that was about when that chapter started. Ironically, we have a great relationship now, but we still communicate that way, like through football.
Yeah. I would say similar with me as well. So playing. So you started playing when you were like 10 or 11. Played through junior high and high school. What were those next steps right there, and what did you learn from the experiences of being an athlete? Was that your only sport?
So at different points, I played different things. I played basketball really early on with my older brother and cousins and things like that. In high school, I stopped basketball after middle school. In high school, I played football and golf. Ironically, I had
Oh yeah.
a principal that just wanted to teach me golf, wanted to get me out on the golf course. He and I still play to this day together, ironically. But football really, I'd say it gave me a lot. I played it through college, and at the culmination of football for me, for the longest time, it was just what I did, right? At first, it was my dad's idea, and then I started to fall in love with it, and started to be able to build camaraderie with the guys and really fight for something that was bigger than me. So it showed me the value of brotherhood, of of just togetherness, like a collective focus on one goal. It taught me discipline because, like 2 a-days are not easy. 3 a-days at
Yeah, it
some
was 3 days. Yeah, when
yeah,
I was
three
playing.
days at some point back in the day. It's very illegal now. And it's a very physical, brutal game. And so you got to learn how to protect yourself. You have to learn how to work hard, but then also keep the bigger picture in focus. The coaches, the relationship with the coaches, the relationship with the educators, because they knew you were an athlete. It changed that dynamic
Yeah,
some, and not just always just like it was just a free pass, but it allowed a broken down layer so you can kind of get to know your teachers better, because they
yeah.
had this like inherent like additional layer of respect for you.
That's a good
So that
perspective to have, man.
yeah, that was something that worked to my benefit. But beyond that, I mean, my college experience, I walked on to my college program in Missouri State, um, had no funding, quit halfway through my red shirt sophomore season. I was getting in, like the latter end of the game, all the special teams. The only reason I ever started traveling was I knocked the kid out. At the end of practice, I was on kickoff, and I was I was a wedge buster, and I knocked this kid out. And the special team coach was like, "Oh, you're traveling." And so I made the traveling team just from my physicality on
One play.
special teams.
Yeah.
And then they started to give me like a couple of series here and there, and I was getting decent production and like from special teams and like a series or two. And I still wasn't on scholarship. And I'm like, man, I'm getting near the same production as these guys are playing the whole game just from being on special teams and getting a couple series. I got to get something. So I went into my defensive coordinator, Coach Melvin's office, and I said, hey, I'm grateful for this opportunity. I enjoy this game. I've been playing it since I was 10. But I have to get something, books, meal plans, something, right? And he leaned back in the seat and he was like, good. I got nothing for you. And I quit. So that was halfway through the season. Ironically, at the end of that season, the entire coaching staff got fired. The whole staff, everybody. The new staff comes in and they're reviewing film from the prior year. I had gotten in against Arkansas and had a couple of good series. And so the new staff comes in, they're like, who is this number 58? Asking the existing teammates, like, who's this number 58? Like, what happened to him? We saw him in a couple of games and he disappeared. And they told him my story. And so they asked me to come back out for spring ball. And I know I'm going long on this, but it really, from a sports perspective, it really defined the whole experience for me. So the new staff asked me to come back out for spring ball. I'm out of shape. I had to get back in shape. I've just been a regular student, like in the library on Saturdays, hear the cannon go off and almost just break down like, oh, my love is gone. Like you can hear the touchdown cannon. So anyway, get past that. Next coaching staff comes in. They ask me to come back out. I go back out. I get back in shape. I have the best spring ball of anybody at my position and one of the best of anybody on defense. I got a scholarship. Man. So I finally got my scholarship. I was able to call my mom, call my pops, and tell them like I got it, and finished my journey out under a scholarship. Had a great senior campaign. Wasn't good enough to go to that next level, especially being from a small school with not a great record. So my sports experience really, I don't talk about it a lot, but it gave me some great tools, perseverance, just being willing to fight and work hard for something and go through the nitty gritty of it day in and day out, and never really just think about the end goal the whole time, but just the focus on the hard work.
Yeah, man. Experience like that, it really it definitely builds you totally different, especially, toughening you up. I believe like when I was a kid, had I not had sports in my life, and my father being, semi-present, I wouldn't be, as tough as I am and resilient as I am today, with a culmination of other things, my mom being a strong parent as well. But, having that level of camaraderie, as you said before, and, that perseverance, and, working hard through problems. I know how it is, 3 days when you want to talk back to your coach, like under the heat in August. August is the worst month in Kansas City. And, keeping your composure, like you learn a lot. It's like,
Yeah.
you're going to talk back, but you're going to run these gassers too, if you want to be on this team.
The lesson is burpees. When you
Oh
have to do
man.
burpees in full pads in the
Oh
heat.
man. That was the
Oh,
worst. That was the worst. And then you line up at the water trough with like
yeah.
the
Yes.
PVC pipes and stuff,
Uh-huh.
like warm water. It's like, this water ain't working. Sharing those experiences, I think a lot of people on this podcast, they probably had some similar experiences, in entrepreneurship. I think a lot of people leave out, the story aspect of where you grew up and what is your story growing up, in a way that if you can just remember one story, that can teach you a lot about where you are today, because collectively, we are just a sum of experiences and people that we meet, so that being said, you were a student athlete, when did health really come into play for you? When did you really start honing in on, not just mindset, but the health aspect?
It didn't really hit me until, I got the foundation of it early. My dad would, we would go to Bally's, to this gym. When I was like 15, we started running the Paseo stairs when I was around 14, 15. So that physical part of it started to happen then. And then obviously in college, you get a better foundation on conditioning. But the nutrition aspect was like completely missing from my college experience. So it wasn't until after college that I really started to think about, what I put in my body. And it came by way of a couple of friends of mine. So I was traveling for work, and a couple of boys of mine, Aaron, who's from here, Eric, who's from St. Louis, they're living in North Hollywood. I visit them on my off week, and they introduced me to cold pressed juicing, or just juice cleansing rather. And I'm completely foreign to this. I'm in my 20s. I'm like, I have no clue. Like, what are you, Clint? Like, you're only drinking juice, like, and no food. And they're like, yeah, and this is the last day. So they didn't tell me this before I got to LA. So they didn't eat the whole first day I was there.
Completely fasting the entire time.
Just juice. And so this is my introduction to that. And they show me the next day, because I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna eat. And the next day they showed me this documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And it's about this guy that for 60 days, he drank only juice. And prior to starting this juice cleanse, he had probably 10 plus different types of medication he needed to take every day. And so this is just a documentary. And so by the end of it, it showed this whole process of him going through the ups and downs of this experience. And by the end, he was a different person. I mean, his weight was down, his skin was clear, he wasn't taking any medication. And it was like, for me, it was like a light bulb moment where I'm like, wait a minute. This 60 days, my grandma lived 60 years and she never had that moment. And then myself, like, I work out a ton, but it's like, how do you eat? And so I immediately came home and did a 10-day juice cleanse. And I would say that was the moment that I started to think about nutrition on the same level as I thought about physical fitness. Before, it was just like this football mentality. I'm gonna eat what I want. I'm trying to get big and I'm gonna just turn it into muscle. I'm gonna live in the gym. But that started to shift after football, because I didn't need to be so big and I needed to see my neck, like.
Yeah. I had traps like that too, man. I used to walk around like 250 pounds and I'm like, I can't even see my body like that. My body wasn't even designed to be that like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of when it happened, that shift. I would say, what was that? Probably in my mid 20s.
Man, so connecting health and your nutrition and your fitness, I think that's like a big thing for me as well. I can definitely attest to that. So like, now let's tell people what you do. Okay, so we kind of got a little backstory of what you of who you are, but what is it that you do?
So I own Ruby Jean's Juciery. It is a startup juice company based here in Kansas City, Missouri. It's named after my beloved late grandmother, Ruby Jean, who died of type 2 diabetes primarily at age 61. So we offer fresh juices that we make in front of you. We offer smoothies. We offer performance shakes. We specialize in cold pressed bottled juices primarily. And then at our primary location, it's also a full fast casual, healthy sit down eatery. So we offer everything from vegan Brussels sprout nachos to broccoli burgers and turkey sandwiches and, you know, different things like that, curry soup, but it's all natural, healthy, very consciously and intentionally created. But it's on our main location is at 30th and Truce, which exists in a long-standing food desert across the street from where I went to daycare as a low-income kid. Our secondary location is inside of Whole Foods in Brookside, a more affluent area here in Kansas City. We've got a location in Springfield, Missouri that is licensed out. Due to the pandemic, I've closed the location in our downtown. And our Whole Foods location has been temporarily closed, but it'll reopen March 1st. So that's what we do. We make juice, and we do it intentionally. Our slogan is "We make juice for a reason." That reason being wanting to just take the story of my grandmother, like the authentic story and unfortunate reality of my grandmother, which isn't singular to my family, which is a pretty common situation for Americans, and then especially Black people, because of how we eat and how we were ingrained to eat for so many years and decades. But taking that story and making health more accessible, more attainable, more realistic, more down to earth, more loving, less judgmental, less Tesla and Lululemon, and more just like, hey, you at grandma's house, you're gonna leave here full, but you're not gonna leave here full on fried chicken.
Yeah.
It's gonna be something that will sustain your body and give you more longevity with the ones that you love.
Yeah, culturally speaking, you know, that is a dynamic that people don't really understand is, you know, there's a history towards to, you know, what Black people as a community has consumed, you know, in a poverty mindset, you know, you go for the cheapest thing, you make it taste as good as possible, you know, like we did that in college with ramen noodles, you know, like if you eat like ramen noodles like every single day, you're going to turn into ramen noodles, you know, or whatever it is. And so, you know, I think that education aspect where, you know, consciously we're trying to think about what's healthy, and we hear soul food, you know, it's like you're eating healthy. Well, it's not really healthy. We've thrown in a lot of sodium, and you know, with the yams, I mean, it's candy yams, you know, like a lot of sugar in it, you know. And so all the things that can be good for us, we're adding bad things, and you know, it's good that you're in a community where, you know, people can actually they can learn more about what health truly is. And, you know, the feeling of just being full after eating, you know, all the fried foods that I love still to this day, makes me feel I'm full with more regret, if anything, when it's all said and done. There's a couple things I never regret. When I work out, like previous to the workout, I'm like, man, I don't really want to do this, you know, but afterwards, I never regret it. Yeah. Now, when I see that food, I'm like, man, I really want to do this. But then I regret that, you know, so it's like an adverse effect. But, you know, I really appreciate how you've not only just, you know, took this juicing trip that you went in, you were in LA, you took this juicing trip experience, and then you turned it into something. And it seems like you're a lifelong journeyman, a learner. And I just have an observation of you from afar, you being a spiritual person, even naming your kid, is it 11 or 11?
It's 11.
Yep. 11. You know, I feel like you're always on the hunt for something. You're on the hunt for, you know, learning, you know, and taking this experience not for granted. And, absolutely. You know, so, you know, you being so intertwined into the community where you're at right now, like, what else do you foresee? I mean, like, I saw the ribbon cutting ceremony at Whole Foods. That was a huge step. Of course, you know, things happen, like the pandemic, things that we can't really control. Yeah. But what's some of the next step? What's the next step for you in your journey?
You know, I've been blessed to, after the creation and formation of Ruby Jeans, and now we're going on 6 years in business, it's created this duality in my life where that platform has really birthed another platform. And I would say that my philanthropic endeavors preceded anything Ruby Jeans based. Like for years and years, I've done different things in the community. And then that turned into Ruby Jeans, and now it's birthing another, this civic voice, this voice that I didn't really foresee, but it's kind of like grown from my interest in philanthropy and genuine giving, and then health, and now saying, how do you take those two interests and transition it to a greater population of people? So civically, I've started to join different boards and use my voice in a way that puts a bigger group of people at tables that really matter, that can affect change. So I see further civic engagement, as God says, that's important, and I need your voice on that. So I see that being a focal point of my future. But then also really scaling Ruby Jeans to a level where it grows outside of Kansas City, and it really becomes a portion of the fabric of Kansas City. Like one of those places where like it aligns with the brand of the city. So that's one of my biggest desires, is to be a part of this place that I call home, in that way. But then beyond that, scaling Ruby Jeans, regionally, nationally, and even globally. But not only just scaling it from just this very singular business aspect of just revenue and locations and distribution routes, but scaling the impact, right? Taking that impact and saying, okay, how can we affect the region? How can we affect the nation? How can we affect the world? And so it's just this like very methodical, journey where it's like you get punched a bunch, like bam, bam, bam. And it's like, oh, I can't see that well.
Yeah.
But God, I know you are there. And I know I wouldn't even have the ability to get punched if you weren't there. And so I want to get closer to my faith and closer to my purpose, and just super aligned with where God wants me to be. And, I just work hard and let I try not to think of like, okay, I want to have 100 locations by 2020. I don't really think of it that way. I just want it to be organic, because what I know is that if we grow in a way that's organic, and if I grow in a way that's organic, and I'm not forcing issues, then the story and the impact will grow and be able to sustain at a larger scale. It's easier to do it when there's one location, two locations, and you're dealing with your local community. But then how do you scale impact beyond that? So, yeah. And I think you have to do it organically. So
yeah, I mean, it's definitely person to person, human, the human element that's really important to your business. And you're a first time entrepreneur, right? Is this like 6 years being a first time entrepreneur with one thing?
I started a marketing / entertainment company, where I would do all these different philanthropic endeavors, political fundraisers, brought LeBron to town for an event 2 years. So that was my first like actual business stuff. My dad is an entrepreneur, so I've been around it since he was in the picture on some level. But for me, brick and mortar at this scale, yes, first time.
Wow, man. I mean, I commend you on that. 6 years in this one business. A lot of people fail at 5. At 5 is like that threshold. So like it's like that keep going mentality. You going through, seeing what happened last year. No one could foresee that. Like, how did you adapt to the pandemic?
The funny thing about us is like, it's almost like I was in a pandemic mindset when I started the business. I didn't have enough money to start the business. I didn't know if I would get any customers, so I was already operating in that mindset of scarcity. And so when the pandemic hit, it's like, go back to what you know. So we leaned out. I put myself right back on the counter. I had removed myself from the operations of the business to a great extent. I put myself right back into operations, and I started swinging back. And one of the things, one of the punches that landed for me, I'm not a violent person. I don't know why punching keeps me.
No, you're not a violent person, but if someone tests you,
I mean,
you can get violent.
yeah, told you I'm from the 30s now, but no, I mean, one of the punches that landed for us was the creation of half-gallon and gallons of cold pressed juice. That was one of the things, as well as an immunity lemonade that had elderberry and ginger and lemon and purified water. Those were a couple of the things that really built us a bridge to the PPP funding. It didn't like make us rich or anything. It just helped us survive and just keep myself, my right-hand man, who's my cousin, and Natalie going. I would say that's another big aspect of it, because a lot of times people just see me, like I'm the one on this podcast. I'm the one that's going to be in the article, but the people behind me are really as just as important as me. It's just, we just have different roles on this team. And that's one of the things that football really reinforces, because if you get out of your technique on the football field, it's gonna ruin the whole scheme. One person out of 11 can ruin the entire scheme. And I take that to heart with this team that I have now. I've been blessed with my cousin. He gives me the ability to do this, right? He's there right now. I'm not, but we're both working. We both have different aspects of this team. And so Natalie and my cousin George, like they were really, they could have said, no, unemployment is super plush right now. Like, I'm gonna go get unemployment.
Yeah.
They didn't. They said, we're here with you. Let's go. It's three of us. And we held down the nucleus of what mattered to the business, pivoted, created new recipe items, and just made it happen. And I'm grateful for that foresight, because that's a gift from God. Like, you don't just get to just have these ideas that come when you need them. Those are seeds that God plants, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's go back to what you just said. You said scarcity mindset, going back to what you knew. Why is it that we have to have a scarcity mindset? Do you feel like, like where we are as, you and I, Black entrepreneurs, it's not just about being a Black entrepreneur and, being the example. For me, I would like to see tons of examples without it even being said, just having community no matter what, just being unified through people's talents. And so, going back to that scarcity mindset, did you have knowledge or educate yourself on how you're going to fund your business outside of, bootstrapping and, trying to busting your ass to get where you're at right now? Because, if there's more resources to share with people, then, there might be other things that you learn in the process in order to build your business, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I had knowledge of, SBA loans, and, I did feasibility studies in my business degrees. I knew that there were financing vehicles that startup businesses should be able to access. But I also knew that a Black man in Kansas City starting up a juice company in a non-juice market with Black skin, with no sales, no real business plan. I think even with the business plan, it wouldn't matter. I knew that I had to prove it. I knew that I had to go that extra mile and say, you know what, this is what I see. Because while I had to operate, I was forced to operate from a scarcity mindset. I know that there's abundance down the road.
Yeah.
Right. And not just in the way of resources. That's obviously a big portion of that statement. But yeah, I knew the ways that you could start without being scarce, but in reality, those aren't opportunities that would have been available to me.
Yeah, I mean, what you're basically saying is that you're trying to reshape a community, and where your business would be located wouldn't be on paper, quote unquote, a viable business to qualify for certain things. And that goes back to like that resourceful aspect of how you want to help and shape the world, differently. A lot of people don't see the beauty in discovering what is not just analytical, that's ones and zeros on paper. They avoid things that are hope driven. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful. I'm a social impact person. Positive People Posse. Yeah, we do digital marketing for people, but we also are about mindset and creating opportunities for people. And so personally, I work with people on the small end to the medium-sized business, and because I'm really betting on them to win. I see the disadvantages that they have against other larger people in the market. And so, like with you, there's so many challenges already. People just not having enough education on what is truly healthy, but also just trying to grow and looking past the shade of our skin, and just really just saying, like, this is a business that I want to support because their impact is huge. Yeah. And so I really appreciate just like the fact that you're willing to have your flagship store in a place where people didn't want to roam, and now we're getting people over there that typically wouldn't even be on that side of the line, where it was red line before. And so, we need more voices like that. And I think sometimes the problem that we have in like comedy, right, is the comedian will say, they only let one of us in right now. Only one of us is going to be hot right now. So like Kevin Hart, the only one is going to be hot right now. And it shouldn't be like that, like I'm hopeful, and that I can just tell just from your energy, just from afar, that, you want to empower other people to really go after, their dreams. But it really does start with their health, man. If you don't eat good, you don't look good, you don't feel good,
it's a block.
It starts.
It's like a brick, building a brick. It's like building a brick wall in front of yourself. Mm-hmm. Like that's what it is. Like the more donuts and fried chicken and yada 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 we eat, and trust me, Dom, like I'm not telling you that I'm like some perfect eater. That is not what I'm telling you. But I know the difference in how I feel. I'm fresh off of a month-long cleanse, man. I feel good right now. Like I feel amazing. Like if I had been eating fried anything or fast anything for the last month, I would not feel as good as I feel today. And that's just a fact. That's like not a sales technique so you can come down and get a juice. That's just the fact of the matter. Like my sister, she just lost 110 pounds over the last, I think, about a year. Dang. And it took she and I have had a lot of conversations, and finally for her that it clicked, where it's like, I got to do this for me, not because my brother said it, or not because, I'm watching the Billy Blanks tape. None of that is going to work. It's going to have to be me. And she finally made that decision, and I can literally just look at her and see her lifted, like see her lighter, and not just literally, but figuratively as well. She just has this better energy about herself, and it's purely based on how much she's been moving her body and what she's been eating.
Yeah, man. I would say that, like, I know a lot of people who've had a similar story, where they look back and they're like, man, what was I doing with those years? That was lost time. But I'm like, don't think like that. Think about all the time that you're gaining right now. So look what's ahead of you right now. Yeah. You can't beat yourself up. Like, you've already accomplished something that you've been trying to accomplish. And then you woke up, and now, any experience like that, it's a learning experience for someone else, so passing it on is, that's a huge thing. Let's talk marketing, so, like when you first started with your business to where you're at right now, good friend of ours, shout out to Danielle.
Oh yeah.
She was been a part of your team. Like, talk about your marketing strategy when you first started to your marketing strategy now and how it's evolved.
Man, it hasn't evolved a lot. I'll be honest. Because a lot of times marketing strategies have the ability to evolve based on resources. You can try new things and send out new ads, so on and so on, pay for Google, SEO dollars and so on and so forth. There's a multitude of ways. But for me, it's always been organic. It's always been organic. We've not spent, I would say, in almost 6 years of being in business, we probably have spent about, and if I add up all the print that we've done, flyers and stuff, we probably spent about $5,000 in 6 years
There you go. I love it.
On direct marketing. So for me, it's always just been about making it true, not like building it and there will come type of mentality, but building it in a way that's singular, right? That it's the first that you've ever, it's the only all healthy establishment on the entire east side of Kansas City in the history of our city, right? It's the first Black-owned business in Whole Foods brick and mortar in their history. So building it in a way that is unique but impactful, right? Not just we sell juice and we sell smoothies, come get them, they're delicious. Like, why do we do that? It's because I wish my grandmother had the knowledge, and I wish I could talk to her today. I wish my son could have met her and been impacted by her power. And so I want more people to have more time with those people that they love. And there's never been anybody in this space that approached it in that way with the same intention, similar kind of stories, but not the same intention where that purpose really lives in every single thing you see the business put forth. As far as the logo, like really saying, this is why we do what we do and standing by it. So that's been the marketing approach, just being authentic. And like, this is marketing right now, right? You're allowing me to share in your platform to tell people my story. Maybe that compels at least one person to say, oh, I'll go try their smoothie. I like smoothies. I didn't even know it existed. And just building on that, because like when you build on it in that way and not just like, oh, I'm going to spend $10,000 on ads or run Groupon, or it's like that base becomes false when you build that way, when it's just like putting money into it. You got to put intention into it, and then talk, share, give, talk to kids, go to gyms. Like, I would put 10,000 flyers in my backpack, and I probably wouldn't make it through all of them, but I would go out by myself normally on every single Saturday. Probably the first few years of the business, time has become one of my biggest opponents. But I love just putting a backpack on and putting out flyers around the gym parking lot or around one of the locations, and just going car to car, just put my headphones on, zone out, think about the business, flyer. Oh, I'm not supposed to put flyers here. I'm sorry. Flyer. Like, so just grind me. Like, I'm gonna go for it. Like, whatever. I'm gonna at least let you know. Like, you might not come, but if I put out 10,000 flyers, maybe 1,000 people will come. So that's been the approach the whole time. Organically growing our social media as best we can, not always having enough content, still struggling with that stuff today, but just going about it organically.
Yeah, man, I love that. Like the content side with the social media stuff, we actually kind of took a step back, where we were like just kind of seeing so much like noise happening, and I'm just like, if you hone in on relationships, and that's what we've been doing on the back end, the social media aspect is, kind of secondary. And so, I believe like the organic approach is the biggest approach. It's how we build our business. We do run ads, we do a whole bunch of other things that give us ROI, but, we still have to connect with that person once we do build, when they're giving you that money. Man, that's the biggest compliment ever. It's an exchange of energy right there. It's beyond, making a dollar. It's like, you should be flattered that someone's spending their money with you. They could have spent it anywhere else, but they spend it with you. And so you have to take that.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I never get like, we've been at it almost 6 years, and you think like, if I see a line in the store, it's just like second nature. I still get like a little like man, like, thank you. Like, even if I don't voice it to them, I'm like, yo, thank you, because they keep us going. So no, it is a deep appreciation when you see that. But I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, man, no, keep talking, man. This is all about you today, buddy. It's that I don't want to go back to work for anybody else again. That's like that was my fear mindset, that scarcity mindset. When the pandemic happened, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go get a real job. Like, how do you even get a job in the pandemic? And then we pivoted, we shifted, we were able to, get back on track and stuff. I mean, we lost a lot of money at the beginning, but, we made it up because we got creative, as you have to. But organically, like that's the best way to do it, being uplifted by your community and actually having a community, they know what to expect. You got regulars that come in there and they get the kale apple thing. I don't know what it is, but I've had it a couple times, but like
the Vine green.
Yeah, there it is. And then another thing is like when something happens, I've seen things happen to your store, and it's like you don't want to like put that shouldn't be like the attention that you want, but when something does happen, your community comes and backs you because they believe in you. They want you there. They know what you're about, that's huge, I was moved just seeing how community has risen up, at times when like you basically called upon the patrons that frequent your place. And, that's a beautiful thing, especially seeing another Black entrepreneur out there who's I know has great intention, for their business. I can relate on so many levels. And yeah, man, you're giving back, in so many ways. And, so having you on this platform today for you to just really just share who you are, hopefully it reaches some other people in the community. And also, maybe some people nationally or internationally, because we got a lot of listeners outside of KC. And I mean, you're on the verge of, one relationship, one connection at any point in time to get to your next point. So you got to manifest and put it out there.
I receive it, bro. I really receive it. I mean, we, like I'm one of those people that like what's ours is ours. That's not barring a whole lot of hard work, a whole lot of intentional thought, a whole lot of action, but it's ours, like it's ours and it's there to be ours. We just have to really believe that and manifest it and say, speak it and live it and act upon it day in and day out and day in and day out with our heads down, not like moping, but our heads down focused, and you look up and it's like, oh, there we go.
Yeah. So, getting back to one of the things common questions I ask all our guests, what is your biggest weakness? And then we're going to talk about your superpower.
Biggest weakness. Wanting to be an octopus.
Hands and everything.
I just made that up too. I might like that.
I like that too. I'm gonna call you Octo Good. That's
Octo Good. I like that too. But nah, man, wanting to be an octopus, man. Like, wanting to do so much. Like really seeing so many voids and so many opportunities where genuineness could really prevail. And wanting to do it all at the same time. But the only thing is, I don't have 8 arms. I only have 2. And so I would say that becomes a weakness because you start to stretch yourself thin and your 2 hands aren't as effective because they're not just grabbing 2 things. They've still got 8 things in them, like, oh. So I would say that probably is one of my biggest weaknesses. It's like a fault of having a genuine heart. And then what was the other one?
Your superpower.
My superpower is Jesus, having Jesus in my heart. That is my superpower. Like really believing that Jesus is real and knowing that he lives in me and knowing that you and I aren't even on this Zoom right now if he didn't exist in my life. And that's for me. But still being able to be open to other religions, other beliefs, other cultures, other races, gay people, straight, like just having that sense of God in me, but being able to be open to other people at the same time.
Yeah, man. Like for me, when anyone has a difference of opinion on religion, I'm thinking, I'm like, hey, that's for them. Like I don't put, I live through who I am with good intention. And so, let that be a statement of my spirituality. I don't have to project at all. If someone wants to know, then I'll tell them, you know what I mean? Like, but too often people use religion as divide, and it doesn't have to be like that. It's like, yo, you're coming from a good place, and you mean well, because like this has been the light of your life. It doesn't have to be said that like you're trying to project and be like, you need to believe what I need to believe.
No,
like how do we win like that ever?
No,
we never win like that. And then let's get to one of the final couple things, advice that you give to other entrepreneurs that want to grow their business organically, because this is probably you're probably the first guest that talked more about the organic side than anything.
Yeah. I think that like it's passion and purpose and intention that precedes it all. It's really, if you're in a space where you just are good in the stock market and it's just a money thing, it's money in, I know the charts, I know this, I know that, this isn't really that conversation. This is a conversation for true entrepreneurs that are really doing things to shift not only their financial futures, but the world around them. And I think that as long as there's a foundation of intention, of purpose, of passion, then it will naturally occur, if that is the true foundation. So I would say focus on the foundation. And if the foundation is pure and it really is what you profess it to be, then the organic part will be a byproduct. The organic growth will be a byproduct of your hard work.
Man, love that. And then last but not least, there's a lot of noise and chaos that's happening in the world right now. And it's been like that for decades. I mean, ever since we've been around, right? But even more so, it seems like everything's more heightened because of social media and everything involving that. So social media and media. So how do you turn out the noise, and how do you keep your head down and stay focused? Tell me about that.
It's challenging. It's challenging because, like, to be honest, like, I'm not really a big fan of social media. But it's like you have to, if you want there to be awareness and you don't have money to just buy billboards and spend SEO dollars, then you have to be ingrained in social media on some level. So you kind of can get caught up in it pretty easily. So I just have made it a focus of mine to stay intentional about the time I spend on social media, and then retreat. And then have times where it's okay not to post anything personally or business-wise, and just go dark. Like, I've given myself that grace to not try to keep up with this, oh, you got to post 1 time a day, 2 times a day, you got to post at such and such time. Like, let
them have it.
Yeah, like,
same thing with us.
Can't keep up with that, where I'm at, and I don't have a desire to. So I've given myself grace. I think it's the best way to not get caught up, is just giving myself grace to exist in my own skin, in my own space, be imperfect, and continue to grow. So grace, I think grace is how I've navigated that.
Man, Chris Goode, thank you for being on the podcast. And last but not least, everyone, if you guys have not been to Ruby Jean's Juciery, you need to go check it out. It's one of my favorite places in Kansas City. Of course, I don't live in KC anymore, but every time I'm there, I touch down and I go grab a juice. So go say what's up to Chris Goode, meet the staff, find something that you like. I'm sure they're willing to help you out. And also, how can they follow you, Chris?
Our website is rubyjeansjuicery.com. I'm on Instagram at Genuine Juice Guy. Our business handle is Ruby Jeans Juicery. We're on Facebook and Twitter at Ruby Jeans Juice.
And everyone, like and subscribe, follow the more likes and subscriptions that we get, the more people that we can reach. And so it's always appreciated when you guys share the wealth. Guys, thank you very much for listening. And until next time, stay positive. Peace out.